Välkomna, very welcome to this symposium arranged by the Sound Environmental Center here at Lund University. We are going to follow the line of the child from the time before birth to youth listening to MP3 or whatever, loud music and discotheques. And to set the key first for the day, both in scientific terms and maybe in musical terms also, we will begin by showing a short film clip from the early 70s, actually, on a French Dr. Frédéric Le Boyer, who is said to have delivered 10,000 babies during his time. But he introduced the idea that the entry to the world should be soft and kind to the child, with muted sounds and soft lights, as far as possible. And Karin Stjernqvist here is Professor Emerita in psychology here in Lund, and she has got many years of experience of research on preterm children, and she's going to give a short comment on the film. So I'll see if I can start it here.
It has been said that regarding the great mysteries, nothing can be said with words. How does it feel to be born? And the deepest impression in our life comes from the very beginning of life. And at this point you don't talk, but you communicate in a different way. As it is said, from heart to heart. At a certain point of labor, the woman has got the feeling, now I'm going to die. And she accepts in order to save the child. And what dies is not her body, it is her sense of separation. The feeling that the little ego, no, suddenly it vanishes. And the moment it vanishes, she becomes boundless, limitless, exactly like life.
Isn't it amazing that in the mid-70s we have Dr. Le Boyer working in France and trying to get his message out to the world? He really started a new era of looking at the infant and looking at the delivery. First of all, I want to thank Frans Mosby for inviting me to this very interesting symposium. I'm going to talk about some other persons also who had made big impact on how we are handling babies and families today. And can I have my first slide, please? Then I would like my second. So, because this day is going to be about child and noise, and I'm focused on that. John Lind was a pediatrician working at the Karolinska Institute or hospital in Sweden. He was born in 1909 and he died in 1983. He was a remarkable man who changed the way of how we treated infants, how we looked upon infants. And one of his special interests was infants and music. I tried, actually, we have one person here who have worked together with him in Stockholm. Perhaps there are more, but I know one. I'm going to talk to her afterwards. His special interest was music in the beginning of life and what music could do. So I tried to read a little bit about John Lind. I went to the internet. Nothing. Then I went to my local library and asked, do you have a book or anything written by John Lind? And my librarian looked in his computer and said, yes. And then he went down to the magazine, the storage, and came up with this book. I don't have a pointer, but Musik I livets början. And it's a... Thanks.
You can run the whole thing there. The red one is...
Thanks. And this is a little treasure. Because John Lind here expresses how important sound and music is for the infant. Already in the womb, as we now know, but also when being born and in connection to both mother and father. And he is one of the first pediatricians who mentioned the important role of the father of the whole family. So if you have a chance, it's lovely to read this. So borrow it in a library. They have it. Next slide.
Yeah, okay.
The second person I want to mention is Professor T. Barry Brazelton. I don't know if you are familiar with him, but Barry Brazelton, he was a pediatrician, but with very special focus, to focus on the behavior on the baby. He wrote a book, Neonatal Behavior Assessment Scale, and I was lucky to be one of the first European psychologists who were taught by him. He gathered 12 psychologists in Berlin in 1984, and we studied infants' behavior. He didn't just study, but he imposed different sounds. I'm talking of just the part where he looked at sound. And he used the rattle and the bell. And then we, on a even point very detailed out from the manual, scored how the infant reacted to sound. I don't think anybody has actually done such notices before and trying to understand how the baby showed that he or she listened to some object, and how some infants reacted with fear, and some people, infants reacted with just loving it. So it's lots to learn by Barry Brazelton. And Barry Brazelton is now 98 years. He's still working. And I met him 2 years ago in Edinburgh, and hope meeting him at least once again. He's done a great impact of child development knowledge. And the third person I want to mention is Heidi-Lise Als. She's professor at Children's Hospital, Harvard Medical School. She used to work together with Barry Brazelton, but then she created her own unit. Heidi-Lise Als has focused on preterm infants, and preterm infants meeting the world, I could say. She works in a natural environment in a complex situation, and this photos, I would say, is taken from one of my former doctoral students, Agneta Kleberg and Ann-Katrin Berg. I thought there were coming 2 pictures, but we take this one. The nurses look upon the baby and see how the baby reacts from different sounds. If there's a person going banging, or if there's an alarm, or if people are talking, or if it's a beeping from the incubator. And she looks very carefully of how the infant is breathing, color changing, and try to understand what this costs the baby to be in that situation. And here is the schedule that we fill in. I'm very lucky to both have met Dr. Brazelton and Dr. Als, because that has meant that I have learned a lot about small children's reactions. And today it will be very interesting from my part of view and from your part of view, I think, because today we go into the brain and see what happens in the brain when the infants are exposed to different sounds. So we have a very nice day forward us. Thank you very much. I was meant to be moderator, but as you can hear, I have had a very bad cold for a long time, so my voice wouldn't be able to reach for all day, but I will give some comments. So thank you.
Thank you.